When you were coming to Ghana, obviously there was an assignment.
Mm-hmm.
Did it change?
The assignment?
Mm-hmm.
No, but the way you achieve it is different. Each ambassador will do it differently. I think it's probably very confusing for ambassadors who have been in diplomacy for like 30 years, because the president we have is a very young president. He was 39 when he won the election, so that was
Impressive.
very impressive. And nobody knew him, really. He had been minister in the previous government, but he was not someone who had been in politics for like 30 years and everybody knew and he had some sort of a corpse in his cupboards and everything. Nobody knew much about him. He had written a book that was called Revolution. That was like his manifesto. But that's all we knew. We didn't know the people who were surrounding him, and we didn't really know what kind of politics he would have in terms of diplomacy and international relationships. And especially with the African continent, he was born 10 years after decolonization. So to him, the vision he had of Africa was a modern Africa. The first encounter he had with the continent was in Nigeria.
Okay.
As an intern during his studies, there was a 6-month internship that needed to be done, and he had done it in Nigeria. So he's a very unusual French who addresses Africa through modernity, through Anglophone countries, and not the usual kind of Francophone relationship that we've had. He knew nothing about that, and he doesn't carry that heritage at all. So he has seen Africa as a continent that you need to bet on, because that's the future, because of the youth, because of the talents, because of creativity, and that's the prisma he was looking at Africa through, which is completely breaking up with the usual way that the French and the French politicians used to look at Africa. There was the French African countries and then the rest. To Macron, there's a whole continent that we need to address with all the diversity and specificity of each country. So he's also betting on working closer with Kenya, with South Africa, with Ethiopia, with countries with which we never had any relationship. We've always had diplomatic relationship, but we don't have this heavy past that we find very difficult to get rid of, and we find it difficult to move on from. And when I say we, it takes two to tango. I mean these countries as much as we do. So probably the ambassadors who had been their entire career in diplomacy, and suddenly there's someone who's telling them that we need to change completely the way we work with African countries. We cannot behave like we've known them forever. We have to have a new, fresh look onto these countries, onto those people. They are changing, and the average age of the continent, which is less than 20 years old, it means that your predecessor didn't have the same people as you had. I stayed 4 years, but the people who were 14 when I was there, they are now 18 and they're going to vote.
Right.
And this can completely change the landscape and even part of the mindset. So unless you are very open-minded to that, you're missing a point. And I think it's been very confusing for many diplomats, because they had a way of doing things, and then suddenly Macron says, no, look, we have to identify the areas where they have strengths and they are really, really good, and that makes them proud, like heritage, again, design, music, sports, entrepreneurship, and focus on those. And that's what I did, because I wasn't coming from the diplomatic service. I was coming from the civil service in different ministries, but not from diplomacy. So my assignment was, you have to bet on sports, entrepreneurship, music, and areas that will make people proud, that are areas of strength, and not focus on, we build a borehole here, we build a road there, because that's basically the government's duty and not ours. And it's not our role to say, you should build a road here or you should build a bridge here, which is what we've been doing in the Francophone countries. Like, we know better. And this is what the people now cannot stand anymore. This French behavior, like we know better. And that's what Macron has wanted to change. But that's what our diplomacy finds it very difficult to change.
I see.
This is Hits.